Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I am honored to be here, and you have an extraordinary representative in Joaquin Castro. He and I have been in many rooms together over the years in DC and around the country, and you are an incredible leader. And you really are. He is always fighting. You do it with such elegance and grace, but you are a fighter to your core. And right now, serving in the House of Representatives, when so much is going on that is contrary to our beliefs, you stand there as a voice of conscience and a voice that speaks truth to power always. So if we can hear it, please, for Joaquin Castro. And Patsy and Lindsay and Sharon, just extraordinary. I'm looking around this room. This is extraordinary to see all these incredible people, these women who are so powerful and the men who love them. It's just so great to be in this room. And over the years, I've had the great fortune of spending time in Texas at various Annie's List lunches, and I couldn't be more happy to be with all of you this afternoon in particular. So let's just kind of get right into it if we can. I think, as we all do, that this is a very pivotal moment in the history of our country. I think of this as being an inflection moment. I think of this as a moment that is similar to the time my parents met when they were graduate students at the University of California, Berkeley in the 1960s, when they were active in the civil rights movement. Let's hear it for the civil rights movement, yes. We're still in it. And this is a moment in time where I think, as a country, we are being required to look in a mirror and ask this question, who are we? And here's the thing. I believe the answer to that question is a good one. Flawed though we may be, I believe we are a great country. I believe we are a great country. But this is a moment in time that is requiring us to fight for that and for the best of who we are. This is a moment in time that is requiring us to fight for the ideals of our country. And so I've been thinking about this moment in that way. I've also been thinking of it based on a conversation that I had just a few short weeks after I took the oath of office to become a United States Senator. So my husband and I have two children. One, Ella, our daughter, who's now in her first semester of college, at the time was a senior in high school. And she asked me to come and speak to her graduating class, her senior class. And so, of course, I did, and I walked into the room, and it was the library where they do all the convenings, and I looked at this room packed with these amazing American teenagers, 17, 16, some of them 18 years old. And one of the first questions, a student raised her hand and asked, "What are we going to do about a divided America?" And it broke my heart. Here these kids are. They should be full of the dreams of who they can be. They should be excited about going out into the world and being those things that have never been. But the question was, what are we going to do about a divided America? And so I looked at her, and I thought for a moment, and then I told her exactly what I believe. I said, you know what? I challenge the premise. I do not believe we are divided. I believe we have so much more in common than what separates us, that the vast majority of Americans have so much more in common than what separates us. And we do. And we in this ballroom know that. We know that based on our personal experiences, based on our professional experiences. I know it to be true based on what I call the 3 o'clock in the morning thought. So y'all are looking at me, okay, Kamala, what are you talking about? Okay, the 3 o'clock in the morning thought. Some people refer to the 3 a.m. moment as the bewitching hour, right? That moment where we wake up in a cold sweat with that thought that has been weighing on us, that jars us awake, that thing that has been troubling us, the 3 o'clock in the morning thought. Well, when we have that thought, it is never through the lens of the party with which we're registered to vote. When we have that thought, it is never through the lens of some demographic a pollster put us in. And when we have that thought, it usually has to do with one of just a very few things for the vast majority of us as Americans. And that has to do with our personal health, the health of our children or our parents. Can I get a job? Can I keep a job? Can I pay the bills by the end of the month for our students? Can I pay off those student loans? Can I retire with dignity? For the vast majority of us, we have so much more in common than what separates us. And so then when I think about that in the context of the work of Annie's List, I also think, as we all do and know, that when we're thinking of these issues and the commonality, those things that we all have in common, being diverse but with so much in common, I also think of it in the context of what it means to think about women's issues. So Joaquin told you I was the first woman to be DA and then Attorney General and the first woman of color to be United States Senator from my state. And so over the years, after being elected to these various positions, people will come up to me and sometimes they would ask me, these reporters, this very unique question. They would put a microphone in my face. So what does it feel like to be the first, fill in the blank, first woman fill in the blank? And I'd look at them and I'd say, well, I don't really know how to answer that question because you see, I've always been a woman. But I do believe a man could do the job just as well. And at other moments, I've been asked a question, which is, so, talk with us about women's issues. And, invariably, most of the time I've said, I'm so glad you want to talk about the economy. Because as we know, all issues are women's issues, and women's issues are everyone's issues. And so let's think about it, right? In that context, and I'm speaking to the choir in this incredible room, let's think about it in the context of 11 short, long months after the Women's March. And what we talked about then, what we talked about in that incredible moment where people showed up and used their voices to fight for all we know is at stake. And we talked about that. We said, okay, you want to talk about women's issues? Let's talk about women's issues. Let's talk, for example, about national security. Let's talk about health care. Let's talk about education, criminal justice reform, climate change. When we talked about this at the Women's March, we said, look, we're pretty clear about what women's issues are because we know if you're a woman trying to raise a family, a good paying job is a woman's issue. If you're an immigrant woman who doesn't want her family to be torn apart, immigration reform is a woman's issue. If you're a woman trying to pay off student loans, student debt is a woman's issue. If you're a black mother trying to raise a son, Black Lives Matter is a woman's issue. And if you're a woman, period, we know we deserve a country with equal pay and access to health care, including safe and legal abortions, protected as a fundamental and constitutional right. And what's so great about being in this room is Annie's List knows that and has been living that work. We saw the incredible product of the support that you all are giving to Annie's List every day. We saw it in the legislative successes that your candidates have had just in the last year on everything from student debt to the foster system to law enforcement. And then we have celebrated just this Tuesday, nationally. And think about the women that you here in Texas and Annie's List, the women you have inspired Just 3 days ago, we elected the first female mayor of Manchester, New Hampshire, the first Black woman mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, and 10 women who beat male Republicans in the Virginia state legislature. Right? And you in this room and the work of Annie's List, which is notorious around this country, have helped inspire those successes we have achieved just this week. And as we go forward then, let's remember to reflect on our successes in the face of vast challenges. And let's commit ourselves together to doing what we know must be done as we move forward. And one of those things, which Annie's List, again, has always done, this has been an organization and a group who support the need for leaders who speak truth. And at this moment in time, there is a need like maybe never before for leadership that is about speaking truth. Because let's think about it. We are right now at a moment in time also where a lot of our fellow Americans, our natives, our neighbors, our friends, there are a lot of folks who are very distrustful right now of our government, of its leaders, of institutions. And one of the things about the relationship of trust is that it's a reciprocal relationship by nature. You give and you receive it. And one of the most important ingredients in a relationship of trust is that we speak truth. But here's the thing about speaking truth. It often makes people quite uncomfortable. And so for people like Congressman Castro and myself, you know, there is an environment that rewards us walking out of the room and everyone is applauding and just feeling very lovely, and we've made everyone feel lovely about themselves, and it rewards that kind of thing. And speaking truth sometimes does not yield that response. But here's the other piece of that we all know. People may walk away from a conversation saying, I didn't really like what I heard, but I respect that it was an honest conversation. And that's what we need to do. So this is a moment where we must speak truth. And so, to restore that faith and trust in our government and our institutions and our country. So let's speak truth. Let's speak truth these several weeks after Charlottesville. Racism in this country is real. Anti-Semitism is real. Sexism is real. Homophobia is real. Let's speak truth so we can deal with it, so we can understand it, and we can stop it. And as it relates to the issue of homophobia, I don't have to tell Texas, because look at your lieutenant governor and the stuff that comes out of him in terms of his perspective. But let's speak truth. Let's speak the truth that since the United States Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, voting rights are under attack in this country. Let's speak truth that 10 federal courts, since that decision, 10 separate federal court decisions have found intentional discrimination. One even said that Black voters were targeted with, I quote, surgical precision. Let's speak truth. Let's speak truth. That sexual harassment and assault are real in this country, from movie sets to factory floors. Let's speak truth. Let's speak truth. We are a country of immigrants. We are a country of immigrants. Unless you are Native American, or your ancestors were kidnapped and brought over as slaves, your people are immigrants. Let's speak truth. Joaquin talked about North Korea. Let's speak truth that muscular diplomacy strengthens our national security. Let's speak truth. Let's speak truth. That defunding Planned Parenthood won't make women any safer, and any legislator or governor or president who tries to shut down these clinics must be stopped. Let's speak truth. And let's speak truth. That the fight ahead is about our love of country. This is a fight that is about our love of country. You know, it's an interesting thing that sometimes when we're in a conversation or a debate and we're critical, we're pointing out what's not working, some people would suggest that that invites a question about one's love of country. I reject that. I say that there are two definitions of what it means to be a patriot. One that suggests to be a patriot, you must condone the conduct of your country, whatever it does. Or the definition that I believe describes those of us in this room. A patriot being the kind that will fight each and every day for the ideals of our country. That's what this fight is about. And so let's think about the great patriots who hail from the great state of Texas. Let's think about Molly Ivins, who saw, right, and said, quote, "The history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America." Molly Ivins, a great patriot. Let's think about patriots like Barbara Jordan, who called for a, quote, "an America as good as its promise," a great patriot. Let's think about patriots like Ann Richards, who taught us, if you love your country, she said, raise more hell. And patriots like two incredible women who serve in the United States Congress, who I know have been supported by Annie's list, Sheila Jackson Lee and Annie Bernice Johnson. So in closing, I'll say this. We all have been spending a lot of time these last many, many months shouting at the TV often. Crying, yes, there have been tears shed, many, many tears. Sometimes we laugh hysterically because we just think that we might be going crazy. We're not going crazy. But there are so many challenges. But at the table, we were talking about this, and I really want to remind us all that when we look at this room and hold on to this vision, look around this room and see this gigantic room full of people who are in this together, knowing what it means to love our country and fight for the best of who we are. Democracy is working. We are being challenged. But people like those who you support through your support of Annie's list are doing the work of out there fighting for the best of who we are. We have a long road ahead, to be sure. But this is a moment that does not call for and cannot allow us to just throw up our hands. Instead, I say this is a moment, instead of throwing up our hands, let's roll up our sleeves. I thank you.